what's on the wall. So for a couple of years we have been researching to put another set of constellations on the wall. And because every old culture in the world has their own constellations, because it's all based on their own folklore, their own mythology, their own religion and history. And we thought it would be cool to have local Native Americans to do it. We went through several different tribes, but they all have oral traditions, and we get different stories from different people. We didn't want to offend anybody until we found a little university in Mission, South Dakota, a little bit north of Valentine, Nebraska, where they have a book published, Lakota Star Knowledge, that has some of this stuff in it. And so we felt pretty good after talking to the Lakota Studies Department there that we could use this in a mural and use it to educate people about a different look at constellations. The interesting thing about this constellation is it's in a circular pattern. A circular is very, very important with the Native American Indians. Everything is on a continuum and everything goes in a circle basically. That is part of their religion and part of their mythology. The other thing that they do is they compare a lot of stuff. There is a saying here on the wall, what is in the earth is in the stars and what is in the stars is on the earth. They compare lots of things based on space, the sky, and the earth. One of the things that you'll see here is you see constellations, you see stars, basically the same stars. Here you see something very close to what we call the Big Dipper, right? But for the Indians, for the Lakota in South Dakota, this was the scoop, or the ladle that carries the hot coal out of the fire to this constellation, the dried willow, which is the peace pipe. So that is how you light the peace pipe. Originally, the meaning was, this was the scoop that took the sun and brought the sun to earth and gave life and light to the earth. So that is another part of that same folklore, that same mythology. So this is our constellation Triangulum and Aries the Ram. They combined those into kind of the bowl of the peace pipe. And dried willow, it's called dried willow, but that is the bark. The dried willow bark is what they smoke in those pipes when they sit in their teepees. So it's an interesting way of looking at things. They have, of course, the North Star, the star that stands in one place. Then they have their own set of constellations along the edge here. They have the salamander, they have the thunderbird, they have a turtle, and they have an elk. We don't have an elk, right? And then on this side we have the fireplace, one of those little pita, one of those little round fireplaces. And then we get to the racetrack. This actually is kind of a stylistic drawing of the clay valley. There's a valley around the Black Hills in South Dakota that basically became a racetrack for the Indian folklore. This is also the shape of the Black Hills when you look from space. We don't know how the Indians ever figured that out, but they figured that out. And it goes through a lot of different known stars. Here are the Pleiades, the seven sisters. Here's Aldebaran towards the bull. These are the two head stars of Gemini the twins, Pollux and Castor. So these are here basically are Gemini the twins, but then just look at this part, which is the Bear's Lodge, which in reality is the Devil's Tower. So that is the Bear's Lodge. And then we go on to Procyon, which is in the Canis Minor, the small hunting dog. Sirius, the big dog. Rigel, the right foot of Orion, with Betelgeuse and the belt of Orion. So they form this ring, and it is uncanny how close that looks like the oval form of the Black Hills. The racetrack is important because of the racetrack we are still here, is the mythology. So when people started coming on the earth, the animals were getting a little pissed, so to say, because people powwow, decided to have a race around the Black Hills between representatives of two-legged animals and four-legged animals. Two-legged animal was a little magpie bird. Four-legged animal was a buffalo. Whoever won the race could determine whether people, the bipeds, two-legged, would stay on Earth or not. And the buffaloes were being hunted quite fiercely. So the hunt, they started running on this side of the racetrack, and the buffalo trundles along pretty fast. The magpie with the little legs couldn't keep up. So the magpie got really smart, flew up, sat on the buffalo's head, and let the buffalo do the galloping, right? All the good stuff. And then right before the finish line, jumped off, across the finish line first, because the magpie was a biped, was sympathetic to people, so bipeds as well, so that's why we're still here. One of the stories. The other interesting story is this missing star in the Big Dipper. I haven't seen any other constellation that has a missing star in the Big Dipper. But the Lakotas have a missing star there. And it's a very, very important missing star. The story goes, there were two girls that were looking at the stars and looking at really nice stars and said, boy, it would be nice to marry these stars. So all of a sudden they were swept up into the spirit world, into the star world, and married to stars, and lived happily ever after, except one became homesick. And so up in the spirit world, one of the rules was you couldn't pick turnips. There was a lot of turnips growing there, apparently. I've never been there. So you couldn't do that. So what does the one lady do? She pulls a turnip out of the ground, and lo and behold, there's a hole behind it, underneath it, and she can see her tribe on Earth. And she gets more homesick, so then she starts pulling up more turnips and starts to braid a rope from all the turnip stems to climb down to go back to her old tribe. She's pregnant at that time, and she miscalculated the length of the rope, so the rope was not quite long enough, so she fell to her death on Earth. But her baby survived, and the baby was known as Fallen Star, and became a real hero in the Lakota mythology. He did a lot of different things. He also made the Devil's Tower come out of the ground when the natives were being attacked by a lot of bears. He basically went over there and made the ground rise while the bear claws were kind of into the clay, into the side of the mountain. That's why it has all these striations in it. And later on, the birds took the people that had fled on top of the mesa there, took them back down to the tribal area. Nowadays, what they say is this is the spirit hole. When a baby is born on Earth, the body is there, and the spirit comes from the spirit world, comes out of this hole from the sky, joins the body, and is a live soul, is now a live baby. When a person dies later on, the spirit goes back to that spirit hole, into the spirit world, and the body goes back in the ground. Interesting stories that you see with this kind of constellations. The seven little sisters were the ladies that were chased up the Devil's Tower. Those were the ladies that were saved by Fallen Star. And because they were so heroic, they were put in the sky, basically. And they're also the head of this big animal. They call it an Tayomni. It's an animal. The tail is Sirius. These are the rib cage, is basically Orion, if we call it Orion. And then the head is the seven sisters. Not sure what to think about it. This is the spirit way. This is the Milky Way, of course, where the spirits walk. The Indians knew that too. And out in Mission, there is a very interesting course that they teach for Lakota studies that talks about all these different stories and observations that they have done over the years for astronomy. One of the things, the interesting part is these Indians, Lakota, have been in South Dakota for a much longer time than we ever knew. In the 1980s, 1984, 1986, there was a lawsuit by white people. They wanted to take part of the Rosebud Reservation and the Pine Ridge Reservation away so they could extract oil and stuff like that. And it came to a federal lawsuit, and the judge determined that whoever was there first would stay there, would have to say about what would happen. So the white man says, well, we've been here since 1492, right? I mean, Columbus, America. So then when the Indians started researching their past and where some of these constellations are in the sky currently and where they were in the old lore, in the old mythology, they found that the sky had precessed about 50 degrees since certain alignments for certain ceremonies, which are depicted here, were around. And if you know that every 72 years the sky changes about 1 degree in precession. So if you take 50 times 72 years, you get 3,600 years, right? And you subtract it from 1984. So now all of a sudden we're getting to 2000 BC. So no contest. So the Indians are still very, very poor. They don't want to hurt the earth, or they don't have any oil extraction or so on their reservations there in South Dakota. But at least the white man didn't take more of the reservation away. Interesting story. The book is still available. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Lakota Star Wall. Has a lot of these stories in it, a lot of information. It's about a 30-page booklet that for 15 or 20 bucks you can sometimes find it on Amazon. Mostly in used conditions. I've never seen a brand new one. So it was written in the late 80s. Any questions? Yes.
I'm curious, I don't know if you know, but could that animal be a dinosaur because they had so many fossils of that way?
Yeah, we don't hear much about the dinosaurs. We hear about either a buffalo or an animal. I mean, they say the main animal is what they say, Tyomni is what the way they call it. I don't know. When I first saw it, I thought it was an eagle, but it's not an eagle. They have the thunderbird up in the sky for that. But no, this is an animal, and some stories talk about a buffalo, but it's hard to see a buffalo in there. It's an interesting thing to learn about and to see how different stories go.
So these sight lines that we were showing here with the different star clusters and alignments on the different...
Yeah, when the sun is in certain constellations, they end up at summer solstice when the sun is here in the Bear's Lodge, which is actually Gemini the Twins.
Oh, okay.
That is the summer solstice.
And it forms
And that is not today, not anymore, but that's where they found out that the sky had precessed 50 degrees. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The winter camp was broken when the sun entered the dried willow, which was Aries the Ram, which is our spring equinox, right, basically. So that was the spring equinox. And then they had 2 or 3 more. Every month they had another religious ceremony at Harney Peak, Tyomni, and at Slate Prairie in the Black Hills as well. The interesting thing is Devil's Tower is not really in the Black Hills. It's not even close. I mean, it's like 60 miles away in Wyoming. But it always has been part of their lore and their mythology.